All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Block Party number 23, our 23rd consecutive. It's now almost 11 o'clock at night here on the West Coast, and I'm passing the keys to Marco and Deirdre and Eliana and whoever else, all of you, to hang out as late as you want. And we are recording and live streaming. And I will give myself a compassion break, get some good sleep, and then tomorrow, Darth Vader hits the main highway here on Whidbey Island to serenade all the traffic going to and from the ferry about my latest mission. Anyway, it's just something I got to do. It's actually for I'm leading a movement to eliminate all criminal drug cartels from the state of Washington. So I'll be dressed in my Darth Vader costume with one big sign that says criminal drug cartels out of the state of Washington, another one that says Trump, grow some huevos, and at the bottom is a basket of eggs, and one little chickie is hatched from the eggs. So anyway, that's going to be the excitement for tomorrow.
Don't forget to record that. I love the last one you did.
Thank you, Marco. All righty. Well, with that, I bid you all a great night. Enjoy, and thank you all for being part of the conversation. So exciting.
Good night, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Good night.
All right. Rock on late night segment. Rock on late night conversation community. Woo! Love you all. Mwah. See you all soon. Take care.
I'm curious, you guys, has it really been going continuously all till like way in the morning like that? Or, I mean,
Yes.
Yes,
it
it
depends on
has.
the night. I've been at least, I can't even remember them all now. I've been at least 2 nights here till like 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time.
Well, are people from Europe and different, and Africa and Australia getting on later on?
The Philippines, we had Misha the other night. He's like, it's earlier in the day for them.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy from, I can't remember his name right now. Who was it from Chile? And then
The lady from Wales.
Yeah. Yeah, she was on last night. I think Misha was 2 nights ago, and like 3 nights ago, the guy from Chile was. I loved he was showing us like view of his horizon and the city lights and everything. It was really pretty. Yeah, I can't remember so many new names to remember. And if they only, were in and out one time, it's. You can't put the name to the, well, sometimes there wasn't even a face to put the name to, so that makes it even harder, I think. But before I forget, the horse story reminded me of a pony we had. We had this big, long, about a quarter-mile long pen that was along the road, and there were goats and sheep in there, and one Shetland pony, and one horse. I forget what kind of horse he was. He was a race horse that used to belong to my best friend, but they had to move, and he had broken his ankle, so he was no longer racing, and they couldn't, they were moving, they couldn't afford to take him, so he was in there. But the Shetland pony, there's like 4 of us kids in there playing with them. We had a bathtub, an old bathtub where you would put the hay in for them, a clawfoot bathtub, and we would lay down under the hay in the bottom of the bathtub, and when the pony came, we would like put our hands up and tease her, and then we'd go for a ride with her, we'd give her a little startle, and then she'd let us ride her around the pen, and when she'd try and get even for us startling her like that, she would go under this low branch and knock you off her back. And then we would lay there and just lay really still and not move, or we would like groan first and then lay there, and she would just keep walking like, I don't care, and then she would slow and slow, and then she'd turn her head and kind of look back, and like, I'm not really looking, but I'm looking. And if you just laid there, then she would come back and she would nuzzle you and push you around, make sure you were right. She wouldn't stop nuzzling on you and pushing you till you got up. I mean, so much intelligence that, you know, science wouldn't give credit for.
Yeah. Oh, you know, what's interesting is the CIA posted, because they were involved, they knew that remote viewing works, right? Because they were part of the studies from Stanford and anyway, Princeton. So anyway, they actually came out and said the law of attraction actually is true, and that there is consciousness. They actually they actually made people study it, and actually, so the CIA knows that consciousness does exist. And it came out just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's like them actually coming out a couple months ago and saying that there were actually UFOs and releasing that footage, you know. But so like, it's getting interesting when all of a sudden the CIA is just fessing up to stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that was recent, you said?
Yeah.
That yeah, I know that it's fairly recent that they what do you call it? The Navy released the UFO stuff.
Yeah.
I always
Well, you know,
get a kick out of
say,
how the different branches of the government think their one is more important than the other.
Right. Well, you know, Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan followed a UFO in the plane when he was governor of California. Jimmy Carter said he saw a UFO. Bill Clinton has said that he has. And so, you know, it's kind of really interesting that there's a lot more people out there that have said that they've seen UFOs and admitting to it, you know?
Yeah, I hate to mention anything, any politician right now, but the only good thing I think that could have come out of the last election is if Hillary claimed that she would release all UFO information if she got in.
Right.
That was the only reason I could think to vote for her.
The only reason I voted for her was because I didn't want to vote for Donald Trump. See, I don't know if I ever told you guys, my grandfather's Reagan's cousin.
Oh, no, I didn't.
And so, anyway, I was like, there was just no way, and I'm a nonpartisan, you know, but and actually originally Ronald Reagan was a Democrat, but there was just absolutely no way I would vote for Donald Trump. So it was like I really didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton, but there was no way I was going to vote for Donald Trump. So I actually had to vote for her. But yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, sadly, in my entire life, born in the States, I'm 59 years old. Never in my voting lifetime has there been somebody I was like, yeah, I want to vote for you. It's always just like, what's going to be the least damage?
Right. That's true. Well, you know, what's funny is what's going on in Texas right now, because the last time Texas voted for a Democrat for president was Lyndon Johnson.
Oh, God.
And Trump's behind Biden right now in Texas. In Alaska, which is really a predominant like Republican state, they've changed all of the electoral college states. There were the 13 states were updated today. And Alaska went from Republican to likely Republican because Biden is just 1 point behind Trump in Alaska.
Well, they're saying Arizona may even go blue this election.
Well, Alaskans are kind of ornery because we're in the process of recalling our Republican governor right now. Our Constitution allows that. You know, Alaska has the broadest, that gives the people of the state the most power. That's why we have the permanent fund and other things. And so Dunleavy has basically been kissing Trump's backside, and everybody's pissed here. So next month, there's supposed to be a recall election to remove the governor from the state of Alaska. We have the ability to remove him under our Constitution, because what can happen is if you get enough people to sign a petition, then it goes on to a vote. So it'll be on the August primary, here, and so they'll be deciding whether they're removing that Republican governor. Then we have the other two people. We have Lisa Murkowski, which I'm sure you guys have heard about. Then we have Dan Sullivan, who votes with Trump 90% of the time, and Don Young just has to go. He's been in there since he got in '82, when a friend of mine's dad was in the Congress back then, and he died in a plane crash. And then my friend became senator from Alaska. He was senator before the current one that is in there now. But yeah, we're just hoping that we get a big turnover in the state, because the people we've had in here for a while have done nothing but support corporations, you know, to the disadvantage of everyone else. So.
Yeah, I try not to become too political, but I'll tell you what, with the state of things now, I'm doing all I can in my power to see that we facilitate some changes, because we can't go on like this.
No, we can't.
We need to eliminate the Electoral College.
Oh,
number
I agree
one.
with you on that.
Yeah.
Well, you guys do know that the Republicans have not won the popular vote since Bill Clinton.
Yep.
What was that? I didn't catch that last one.
The Republicans have not won the popular vote since Bill Clinton.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. This Electoral College.
The other thing is, you know, for any office lower than president, you know, people often say, you know, I think the general consensus is that, you know, majority rules, and it doesn't. If you have 4 candidates running for something, and somebody gets 24% of the vote, and somebody else gets 25, and somebody else gets 25, the guy that gets 26 wins. So that's less than a quarter of the people, not a majority by any means, and not necessarily the smartest quarter of the people either.
Right. Where Alaska's switching to choice vote, where you choice ranking, so which is a little different. But did you guys notice that apparently Trump today removed the pictures of George W. Bush and Bill Clinton and put them in a closet? I'm like, now he's I'm sure he took Obama's down a long time ago.
He never put it up.
Yeah, that's right.
He didn't put it up at all.
So
Yeah,
now he's removing all the pictures of former presidents from the White House and putting them in the closet.
Wow, that's.
I guess he wants to stay there.
Well,
when she wanted to be president for, you know, head of China for life, remember Trump said he wanted to be president for life.
Help us all, heaven.
Well, the Pentagon said that they would enforce the Constitution, and that what if they had to remove him out of the office, they would. So that was interesting, because they came out and said that. Did you guys see what happened in Portland today?
No.
Apparently, the DHS and the border security used border guards to go in and arrest 2 people in Portland for peaceful protesters. And so the ACLU is now suing Department of Homeland Security, and Congress is asking for an investigation into the Department of Justice, because they are illegally using and they were not wearing any insignia. They dragged people and put them in unmarked cars. And so the U.S. attorney in Oregon came out today and said that he wanted an investigation into it. But they were basically using illegal force against U.S. citizens again today.
They were kidnapping people.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that federal law allows border patrol, border guards, they have a jurisdiction within 100 miles of a border. And if you get out a map, and you measure 100 miles in from every border, there's not many places you can be without them having jurisdiction. So and I know in Michigan, the DNR officers have more rights, actually have the right to search places without warrants. So cops will try and claim that there's a DNR infraction and go in to assist DNR agents when they want to get somewhere. It's all loopholes and crap.
Yeah. Well, at least there's legislation that's bipartisanship to take away the military equipment and a whole bunch of that stuff from the police now. So that Lisa Murkowski, our senator, and Brian Schatz from Hawaii and several other people have sponsored that legislation. So to demilitarize the police.
Yeah, we're definitely living in interesting times.
Well, I think we need to have term limits on Congress.
Oh yeah, the people that have been in there have been in there for I mean, they've made it basically, they stay there and then they basically pass legislation to line their own pockets, you know, and then they come away as millionaires. And then if you look at the median income of most Americans, most people don't make $56,000 a year, but that's the median income, right?
I've been saying that for years.
Members of Congress make $174,000. Plus they get retirement, medical, free gym. They get to park at any airport in the whole United States. They got a travel account, you know.
And they only have to serve one term to have those benefits continue.
Right. That's the problem.
For life.
And they work 100 days a year.
Here's another thing. You know, you can.
Yeah.
If you get in any branch of the armed forces for, you know, when you're 18, and you can stay in any branch of the armed forces long enough to collect a pension, then you can go be a senator and for one term collect that pension, be a governor, collect that pension. They stack them all up. You know, there has to be reform in their pay and their benefits, not just term limits. If we did just if it was just term limits without reforming the pay, government would become so expensive. Oh, one term, and now you get all this stuff for life. Then you know that would be crazy.
Right. I think we should do what the Spartans do. So after your first term, you either get a thumb up or a thumb down. If you get the thumb down, you get the thumb up, you get paid. If you get the thumb down, you don't.
You get the thumb down, you get to eat with the kiddies.
Yeah. You don't get paid the whole time. But yeah, that's what I tell everybody, that, you know, we're in a position where we have no choice but to change and to move forward. You know, it makes no sense to subsidize oil and gas industry when they make the highest profit in the history of the world, like Exxon is, at $700 a minute.
What about the pharmaceutical industry?
Well, they're just as bad, but I was using them as an example. But yeah.
I think the oil business is not as good as it was, I hear.
Well, that's, you know, and people don't realize the oil industry runs most of the corruption on the planet, and what, you know, how they bribe the senators, the lobbyists, you know, and there's a book called Blowout that was written by Rachel Maddow.
Yep.
And it's on the history of the gas. See, in Alaska, we have a term for these guys because they've actually done so much corruption in the state of Alaska. The term for them is the corrupted Republicans that do this. The term is Corrupt Bastards Club. So,
but you know, like you're saying, they're like one of the worst or whatever. And this whole thing with us staying home, you know, all these months, like I barely drove my car maybe like 15 miles all this time. So they're probably like, oh my gosh. I mean, they have money for days, but still, you know, the greed of
the corporate. Yeah. And that's what's driving our planet right now is corporate greed and the greed of the rich, that, you know, the people that are millionaires, if you ask them how much money is enough, they'll say, oh, I need at least another 5 million.
Well, it's the golden rule of the corrupt. He who has the gold makes the rules.
Yeah.
And the problem with the oil and gas industries is they're not actually, if you look at what they're doing logically, and they took responsibility for all the costs they pass on to society, they wouldn't be profitable to begin with.
Well, since the 70s, they've known that they were affecting the climate. I've been in Alaska since 1968 when my dad came up here to install the original satellites for the US government, right? When the only people who knew what satellites were for worked for the government. So anyway, so since that time, you know, they were flaring, and I've seen what the oil and gas industry has done, you know, to Alaska and how it's changed the climate. And people just don't realize, you know, they see this stuff going on in the Arctic, but they don't realize we generate the weather for the rest of the planet. And so what goes on here doesn't stay here.
Yeah, and of course, the oil companies are in denial of global warming, yet they build the oil rigs out in the ocean higher than the ocean level because they know that the oceans are going to be rising. The platforms are way higher, many feet higher than the ocean, you know, level, current level. So they don't want to lose money on the rigs.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, that's why that's why Shell and a bunch of those pulled out of drilling in the Arctic, because Canada had done a study after Deepwater Horizon. And so they did a study of all the major oil spills or accidents on rigs and everything else. And they spent millions. I stole it off the internet and gave it to the senators from Alaska. So when Shell wanted to drill in the Canadian side of the Beaufort Sea, they told them that they had to have an icebreaker, right? So that's why Shell has an icebreaker. But they made them see what happened with the Deepwater Horizon. They could have stopped that in 2 weeks if they would have brought in a backup rig. And so Canada forced all of the oil industry to have a second drilling rig on site. So if you have a blowout, then the second rig drills in a horizontal, relieves it, and stops it. Well, so that went on for months when they could have stopped it. Not to mention what went on with Halliburton. They had alarms going off, and Halliburton didn't do anything. And so when Shell Canada put the oil and gas industry in a position where if Shell didn't come in on that well, that it was basically boom or bust. So when the well didn't come in, Shell pulled out of the Arctic because they had oil and gas leases in the Alaska side too. And so I'm really encouraged that all the banks now, because I've been putting a lot of leverage on them too, but are basically deciding that they're not going to invest in drilling in the Arctic, you know. And when they were trying to run the pipeline, the other Keystone pipeline through Canada, so I would do things like get in with the environmental people because they were going to run it through the Spirit Bear territory, which is a really rare white grizzly bear, right? Mm. And so we got on there, and so we got to the premier of BC. So we basically stopped them from putting in that pipeline because every time they tried to do something, a whole bunch of us would get on board. And so basically got that shut down. We were helping the indigenous people in Canada and stuff, but it's all of the tar sands and the oil, which tar sands are the worst. And that's what Alaska has the main amount of, which is called bitumen. And once the only place that Alaska can sell bitumen or Canada is to Asia, because there are so few points left after they refine it that there's not enough points left to burn it in a car. So you can't sell that to anywhere other place on the planet but Asia. So the majority of those bitumen in Canada, they just dig it up with big earth movers and just load the sand. They just dig big pits for it. They don't even drill for it. So all of the oil and gas, and people don't realize this, in Yukon and Alberta belongs to China. And China uses 5 million barrels a day of oil and gas. And after the embargo of Iraq, when China's economy was going down in the late 80s because of that embargo, and they couldn't get oil, that's when China started investing in oil and gas. And China basically produces most of the oil and gas around the planet. That's why they're going in with Russia and different places. Like Chesapeake is owned by the Chinese, Chesapeake Oil. They owe like billions of dollars to the US government in back taxes, but they're still letting them drill for oil. And so what goes on is that, so they needed another port to ship this oil out of Canada. So that got shut down. That's why they were running the Keystone Pipeline through Canada down to Texas. And there's only 5 refineries in the whole United States that process bitumen. That's why they converted one in Texas. But another thing the oil and gas industry did, and it wasn't Shell, it was, I'm trying to remember which one company it was, Chevron. Chevron had 2 sweet crude oil refineries. So what they did is they intentionally shut down 2 oil refineries to jack the price of gas at the pump. So and people don't realize there was do you know what happened in the 70s? Do you guys all remember the price where the gas shot up in the 70s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the rationing.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember, because we were heating a greenhouse with fuel oil, and we were blowing through 1,000 gallons every 10 days, and every delivery it went up.
Well, there was a conference in Ireland where every major oil company met, and they were actually literally trying to rig the price of oil and gas. Okay. And so they finally figured it out and busted them on it. But people don't realize that when Rockefeller owned Standard Oil, that they sued him they should be suing all the oil and gas industry right now for antitrust. They sued him, and that's when they broke up Standard Oil into 30 companies. They used the Sherman Antitrust Act against Rockefeller and broke up Standard Oil. That's when all the oil companies. And so when in Alaska, when Exxon merged with ConocoPhillips, and then you had BP merged with ARCO, and no, it was ExxonMobil, Conoco, and Conoco merged with one, I forget anyway, so I was on Mike Reagan's show with Mike Reagan, and I specifically told Mike Reagan, I said, we shouldn't be allowing these companies to merge because they're forming a monopoly. And at that time, the governor of Alaska, the former governors of Alaska, Walter Hickel, which I don't know, you guys have heard, he used to be Secretary of Interior. And so Walter Hickel and Jay Hammond, all of them were coming out and saying, do not let them merge, because then they will try to control what happens with the government and the state of Alaska. And that's what's been going on here for so long. And they don't believe they should even pay taxes in Alaska. So they took, one company my sister works for, they took between $5 and $10 million on the PPP, and then laid off all their employees on the North Slope.
One pause, if we could just say hello, Ximena, and if there's any messages from the other side or anything you want to share. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
But my only point is they're like the most corrupt industry, you know, one of the most on the planet. But people don't realize the history that's behind them. So
well, yeah.
We can change the topic. Anybody have a topic they want to talk about?
And what to do about it. You know, if we invoke the Star Nations and we center and return to indigenous ways, what does that actually look like? Right. And how do we get there from here?
Well, I believe that we should be transitioning to other sources of energy. People don't realize, like, that we have the ability. They have in Europe, they have bridges where they build bridges with these big turbines in them, so that when the wind blows through the gullies under the bridge, they create energy. They have these incredible pieces of art that look like trees that have these spinning things on it that create energy. You know, there's turbines you can put on buildings. And a lot of these aren't creating, like when you're talking about solar panels and stuff, these don't have the same impact on the environment. But there's these alternative things that we do have that we can address. And people don't realize when you plant a tree, you know, if you take a diaper, the lining out of a diaper, and you put it in the ground before you bury the tree, not the plastic piece, we're talking about the inside. Well, the gel that's in those diapers that holds water, if you plant that, put that under a tree when you plant it, it helps hold the moisture in for the tree. So it doesn't require as much water. So
what about plasma energy?
Yeah. And see, there's another example. My son, when he was in 4th grade, the two of us built a hydrogen car for his science fair. And it had a remote, and he drove that around for a long time. So John McCain, his bus, that he drove it, his semi, he had converted to hydrogen. It actually, which is water, basically ran off water. So there's these other options. He actually ran, and people don't realize John McCain was actually for green energy, you know, and conservation. Unfortunately, he's gone. But
It didn't vet Palin.
You don't want to go with Sarah Palin. People don't realize that she actually quit as governor. She was still, I gave her emails to Mike Reagan and Mike Huckabee. She's never been allowed to speak at the Republican convention since. Anyway, she basically said she couldn't handle it, Hackett anymore as governor. And so she resigned, right? And then, you know, McCain picked her. He didn't vet her. They were just looking for a woman, you know. And she's not that bright, but in Alaska, let's put it this way. Her family started a fight at a barbecue in Alaska. Wait for this, you guys. So her son basically was drunk and hitting on other guys' wives. And then her daughter, Bristol, who has a large mouth. Anyway, between the two of them, they started a brawl at a barbecue. And there's this big fight going on out in the yard, and the cops are called. And Sarah Palin's standing there screaming at everybody in the yard, "Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who?" We're like, yeah, you're nobody. So when Sarah Palin was pretending she was going to run for president, right? I knew the day before she wasn't going to run, right? So I texted Mike Reagan, right? So he could purposely scoop her because she wasn't going to tell anybody till 5 o'clock the next day, and his show aired earlier, right? So Mike Reagan tells everybody she's not going to run. We're just messing with her, right? And so Mike Reagan sends me a text back that says she's all show.
I have a Alaska-based question, but I would like to hear from everybody on some, you know, especially anything around like, you know, politics, the future, post-politics, exopolitics. I put a link in there to the Exopolitics Institute. But every Alaskan gets paid a certain amount of money from the oil industry. And I don't know if everybody
else. It's not from the oil industry. It's not just from that. Alaska's constitution, remember I explained that earlier, Alaska's constitution is different than everywhere else. In Alaska's constitution, it specifically states that all of Alaska's natural resources have to be developed in the best interest of the state and what the people want. So the people of the state of Alaska are actually owners of the natural resources in the state of Alaska.
And when other countries try to do that, they send in the jackals, but yeah.
I know, but that was part of the Constitution in the state of Alaska. So that gave the people of Alaska, that's why everybody in Alaska is fighting Pebble Mine. Because Alaskans don't want Pebble Mine.
So if someone moves to Alaska, you start getting a check for being Alaskan?
After you lived here a year.
A year?
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth it?
Well, they have probably $700 billion in the permanent fund.
Well,
that's invested in different industries and stuff. Right now, Alaska's trying to go through a transition because they really need to get other industries to come up here. So we're trying to get them to transition away from just the oil and gas industry. That's why it's nice that we now have, well, it's been there since the 80s, but we have the Alaska Space Center in Kodiak. And every time that Kim Jong-un shoots off a rocket, every base in Alaska goes on alert, because the only military base in the whole United States that can shoot down those things is from Kodiak.
Wow. Did not know that.
So they can actually launch, and see, they're trying to get Space Force to be based in Alaska, because people don't realize you don't have to. We launch satellites from here. They don't need to be launched down at the equator anymore. They figured out the math how to launch them up here. So we have a huge space port here, where they're having the problems now with Johnson, since it's Texas, but in Florida, where that's going underwater due to climate change. Cape Canaveral, the water just keeps going up. So we actually have 2 launch sites here.
Did HAARP go offline?
HAARP, HAARP is really funny. I love the conspiracy theory about HAARP. HAARP now belongs to the University of Alaska. And it was never what people were saying that it was. So the US government has not owned HAARP for about 15 years.
There's so many theories out there about HAARP. I don't.
I love the one where it says there's an underground base underneath it. I've been to HAARP. There isn't one. It's just an antenna array. And basically it's built off, where they're studying the space, and it's kind of the weather and stuff, but it doesn't alter the weather the way people think it does. It has to do with ions and different things in the air, but it's basically run by the University of Alaska now.
Yeah, in Michigan we have ELF. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, I've heard of ELF, yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of conspiracies about that too. Uh-oh, we're losing steam, room.
So what are the topics you guys want to talk about? What else do you want to know about Alaska?
Are you aware of any of the sort of undisclosed facilities? You sort of act like there aren't underground facilities, but of course
there are up at J-Bar. There's some on Elmendorf. They're up towards Fairbanks in the middle of the state. So there are some there. My dad actually was an electrical engineer, and that's how we got to Alaska. And remember me telling you he put in the original satellites? Well, he shut down the White Alice stations too. So they still have a few of those listening stations, but they have satellites now, so they don't use a lot of the old stuff as much as they used to. The technology is different. But no, they have those bases. In fact, my nephew is up painting the inside of missile silos up by Fairbanks right now.
I guess missile silos need a fresh coat of paint now and then too.
Yeah. You know that what's really funny is the Russians' favorite game is to actually send their jets over. Some of them cross over into Alaska airspace, but our airspace, we have a 200-mile limit compared to the rest of the United States. Our limit extends further out. So their favorite game is to actually fly just right outside Alaska airspace, and so we have to scramble our jets.
Christopher is asking in the chat, does the government actually cut every Alaskan a check every month?
No. The permanent fund dividend comes out once a year. This year it was $1,200. Last year it depends on their investments, because the majority of the money they keep in an investment and it pays backwards. So the money's like 5 years back. So depending on where the stock market was with what the investments were, that's what we get paid out of. But so sometimes it's been as high as $3,600.
So not enough to live on.
No.
Well, at least not enough to live on well by any means.
Well,
I don't live on a whole lot more than that myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, Alaska is really expensive to live in as a state. because everything has to be shipped or flown in. So people charge more for it, even more than Safeway. When there was a whole bunch of different grocery stores at one time, and then Safeway bought out Cars, which was an Alaskan-based company, but Cars owned a shipping line. So as soon as Safeway bought out Cars stores all over the state of Alaska, they literally doubled the cost of food in the state of Alaska by purchasing Cars grocery stores. So let's put it this way: a gallon of milk up here is $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
Now, if you go out into the rural bush areas, a gallon of like Tide laundry soap, $25.
When I was 18, they were advertising all over in the lower states for people to come work on the Alaskan pipeline and how much money you could make up there. I was all set to go, and I ran into a guy wearing a hoodie that said, "I survived the Alaskan pipeline."
Right.
So I talked to him. He said, "Yeah." He said he got there, and after he'd been there a month, he wanted to come home, but he couldn't get enough money together, and he couldn't find anybody to send him money. He said, "Sure, we got this huge pay." I forget what it was. He said, "But if you wanted an egg for breakfast, it was like $10."
Yeah, well, depending on where he was at, yeah.
Right.
And so, and if you realize in the 70s, it was true. There was a huge amount of money to work for when they were putting in the Alaska gas line. I mean, Trans-Alaska Pipeline. Right. But that was because the Teamsters unionized the whole state. So the Teamsters had their own hospital. It wasn't bad. You got huge pay. You had hospital medical coverage. I mean, my dad died after she came up here, so she stayed. But that was because of we had medical coverage.
Now let's go forward with the story that appears to be so sensitive that extra effort is being made to block us. So now, would you go back?
I just noticed Jamin actually forgot to
counterintelligence as a warrant officer at CW2, and that you were in Anchorage, Alaska, at Fort Richardson.
Can you try and mute that? Okay. I couldn't tell who it was.
Yeah, we do have a lot of earthquakes here, but we have earthquakes all the time. There's probably 2,000 earthquakes a year in the state of Alaska. But the difference is our building codes are different. So with Alaska, it's like that last big quake we had that was over 7. Because of our building codes, we didn't have as much damage. The damage occurred to the roads.
That old video of the Anchorage volcano or earthquake was pretty tremendous with him. It's crazy wild.
Oh yeah, it swallowed up huge portions of Anchorage. The ground just opened up, and people don't realize that was the biggest earthquake that they've had on, record. I knew somebody whose younger brother, when the earthquake started happening, him and his brother ran outside, and his younger brother, the ground opened up and his brother went into the ground. There's a whole earthquake park in Anchorage where you used to be able to see the chimneys and parts of houses, but now that was 64, but it's been so long that it's kind of overgrown. You can't see the buildings as much anymore.
That must have been awfully traumatic to lose your brother like that.
Yeah. And there's a really interesting phenomenon when you have a big earthquake, all the trees will literally lean over with the ground. So they'll actually be like almost laid flat and then they'll come straight back up. It's like this gigantic wave where the trees lay down and then stand up.
Yeah,
it has to deal with the permafrost and their roots not being as deep.
What about the pyramid that is supposed to be larger than the Giza pyramid that's supposedly underground in Alaska?
They actually know that Alaska and Canada, the oldest ancient humans are actually been discovered in Alaska and Canada. And they were giants. They were tall people.
Are they in the museum? Do they have pictures in the museum, or how do you see?
The University of Alaska has some stuff on them, and then Canada has some other stuff on them. But yeah, they know that there was an older civilization that was actually in the northern part of the United States of America that was up here, which pretty much corresponds with, if you listen to a lot of the other stuff about with the Pleiadians and different things where they talk about a group of giants. See, that's what was buried underneath those tribal mounds that used to exist down in Ohio and stuff, those big tribal mounds. Those were ancient burial sites. And the indigenous people were protecting them. There's a whole bunch of, and that's why the Smithsonian stuff seized a whole bunch of the ancient indigenous people's bones and stuff. And so they're literally refusing to give back any of that stuff to the any of the tribes.
There's a huge number of old stories over the last 150 to 200 years in the U.S. and Mexico and other places of very large, up to 12 foot and larger humanoids who the story almost always ends with, and a gentleman from the Smithsonian came to investigate and is going to do all the research for us. Don't worry.
Right. And you'll never get your stuff back.
Yeah, they're literally there's more and more proof of giant skeletons that have been dug up all over the world. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not being hidden as well as it was for so long.
They found an ancient cave with the oldest child just recently, and the University of Alaska has that. And they have stuff dating back in Alaska from when there was still a land bridge between Siberia and Alaska. And they just found a whole burial site of that. See, what with the indigenous people in Alaska, when they are not just Alaska, but in the United States, when they trace them back, what had occurred is you had like the Mongolians, and there were like 3 groups of people that had kind of like merged and interbred over that land bridge, and the indigenous people that were in Siberia. So those 3 groups of people basically interbred, and they became the indigenous people in the United States, which is kind of interesting. But what's, you know, that some of the indigenous people actually have Egyptian DNA down in, where it is. But I remember that there was a group that actually had DNA from the Middle East. But Miami's named after the Mayans. That was all part of the Incas.
Wow. Learned a few things that I definitely hadn't heard before tonight. Jimena, are you have anything to share?
Hi all, I was just listening. It's very interesting. Mm-hmm. I also believe that if there were giants over there and there are pyramids, they were like kind of their Legos, or what were they planning to do with those pyramids? Because if they were giants, I can't believe like something was going on over there. But I have a very close friend of mine that I wanted to invite here because he is in Spain and he's been trying to promote the healing with pyramids. Have you heard about this? I think now it's very open to the world. Mm-hmm. And he told me that the pyramids were sanctuaries for healing. They were not tombs. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting to know this because they fill the pyramids with water. There was this hydraulic system in order to fill the pyramids with water, and they were kind of sanctuaries for healing. So everybody understands that pyramids are.
Yeah, there's actually actually buildings underneath the pyramids that they know. That's like that they don't let people in, and they know that the ancient Egyptians, they were like hospitals and they used sound healing.
Exactly. So it's like the principles of holistic healers begin there, with many interesting techniques that they use over there. And what you were talking about, the natives being Egyptian, you told that, Adrian? It kind of has to do with the Anunnaki thing or something like that? Because if you read this book that is The Return of, I don't remember that name right now. I will search it for you. Inanna. The Return of Inanna speaks about the extraterrestrials came here with the Anunnakis during the Egyptian era, and the giants and these kind of races came with them. So the ancient civilizations that we knew are not even closer to the more ancient civilizations of Atlantida, Lemuria, and so on, backwards. And it is very interesting to study all of this, but I was trying to imagine those giants with this very little pyramids, like Legos. And it was funny.
You know, that's weird, because just as you were saying it, I was thinking it. That was weird.
They've actually done a study of the DNA of all of the United States as indigenous people, and I was reading it because I was kind of like fascinated about figuring, to learn about where they came from and different things. So that's how I knew that there was a group that actually had Egyptian, and the Mayans were through Miami and stuff. So it was just interesting. You guys all do know that DNA is passed
I really had no clue that Miami was Mayan. But you said it's interesting.
Yeah. And people don't realize that the DNA always goes through the woman, the mother. It's like if you, let's say your son died in the war, but he had a relationship with a girl and she had a child. They can basically take a swab of the baby and the swab of the mother's mouth and tell whether the baby was her son's. All DNA goes to the woman. It's passed down, hereditary. I always found it interesting too that they know that the intelligence of the child comes from the mother. And I find it, we've been going through this whole, 13 is the number of feminine. We know how it's been suppressed for so long that within this last month, when the new moon and all that came up, that the 13 was the numerology number that was coming up, and how the patriotic society is now being, according to numerology, is now being replaced by, once again, for a long time, a lot of these societies were led by women. So now the women are basically, once again, taking up to their place, to be equal with men in leadership and all of this. And there's an interesting thing. Wait till you guys hear this. So when there's a 500-year cycle that just ended, and it had to do with when the Lutheran Church broke off of the Catholic Church. And so in numerology, there was this really interesting thing that this cycle had ended. And so it was like I don't know if you guys heard of Tanya Gabrielle.
I'm sorry,
she does numerology. Tanya Gabrielle, I can put her name in the chat. And anyway, she does these really interesting numerology with history and these different, you know, what's going on. And she was explaining that that cycle had ended, and with the ending of that cycle, it was like the rise of the church. And so now the church is being, spirituality is now arising over the church. So it's kind of interesting.
Did any of you listen on the harmonic convergence with Adam Apollo, his talk? It was very interesting.
I listened to a lot of them, but I don't remember all the people's names.
Yeah, he was talking about the ruins and the Inca and the civilizations before that, and just really brilliant conversation. Well, I was so impressed with the convergence, the harmonic convergence. It was 10 days of brilliant people and wonderful.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it.
And, oh my God, and just the video, I mean, the in-between music and all of it, it was just stunning. It was so well done. Have any of you felt like you don't even have an appetite after all of this?
Yes.
Yeah, it happened. Yeah. I don't think I had a full meal today.
No, I had a kale smoothie and 2 bites of salad, and that was it. I'm not hungry, and it's been like 3 days of just like hardly. I feel like becoming a breatharian or something.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, but I think that, at least for me, it's just like if this whole 10 days put me in a very kind of like energized state, you know, like super, it affected my sleep because I, you know, throughout the entire quarantine, I was sleeping like really well all night, you know, like I hadn't done in a while. But as soon as this started, I was like up late, up till late, and then waking up super early and, you know, feeling pumped, just highly energized. And so the appetite just hasn't been there.
Back to the weight that I used to be for years. It was like, it feels really good.
Yeah, I'm working on weight loss, but doctors had given me medication and it made me gain weight. So I just stopped taking all their meds. I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. But then I have a lot of food allergies. So it's like, I can't eat processed food, but then I'm allergic to strange things like onions, bell peppers, ginger. And so it's like, I can't be vegan. I can't totally be vegetarian because I have these certain weird allergies. So, you know, I still have to eat eggs or something, you know, so eggs and cheese. And I try to eat a lot of vegetables. My idea I don't even eat that much bread. I might eat, if I put something, I don't even have tortilla wraps, but I do like street tacos, but those are corn. So I'll just stuff vegetables in it and throw some hot sauce on it, eat it that way. But yeah, I was asking them earlier today about, he was telling me, no, you can, there's a certain place I could go that they might be able to help you with adjusting a vegan or a vegetarian diet because of the food allergies that I have. But I'm glad that I'm allergic to additives, because that I just, like, there's potato chips and stuff I just couldn't eat. And I've been that way like since I was born. When I was
it's
born,
kind of like a recalibration.
Mm-hmm. When I was born, I couldn't eat anything. They literally cut my ankle, a vein down to my ankle, and they fed me through a tube in my ankle. But so it's like if I eat bell peppers, I won't eat for a week. It just totally upsets my digestive tract that bad.
Well, I talked to someone, their son had become allergic to something, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and it was just like he was allergic to everything. And I wish I could remember the doctor's name. Had him fast for, I think, only a day or two. And then after that, all he ate for 6 weeks was organic chicken with no seasonings, you know, just boiled, and organic berries. Lots of blueberries and anything in the berry family, and that's all he could eat for 6 weeks. And it reset. He's not allergic to anything anymore.
Right. And so I mean, I buy organic vegetables, and I switched to, even though that stuff is more expensive, then I just eat. I'm thinking that's okay, because even though it's more expensive, I'm eating less of it, and it's healthier, better for me. So I switched that to just organic stuff. In Alaska is really expensive. So I have made that switch. And since my son moved out, it made it even easier for me, because now I don't have to eat the stuff that young people think they want to eat, like top ramen, you know. So I don't make spaghetti. I don't do any of that stuff, you know. So
have you tried Ayurvedic diet? Have you tried?
I haven't tried that yet. You know, I do like cacao though. I like in the morning instead of coffee, I'll take almond milk and throw some cacao powder in it and drink that for breakfast. But I switched off milk a long time ago. I took my son off milk when he was in like 6th grade, and I switched him to almond milk, and he would even eat it with his cereal. He liked almond milk better, but it stayed fresher longer, and it was like he wasn't drinking milk either. And if I bought a gallon of milk, like I was telling them, it's $4 for a gallon of milk here, and it would just go bad, you know, before he'd drink it, and I definitely wasn't drinking it. So I had switched him to almond milk a long time ago.
Was almond milk more expensive than regular milk, or?
It's about $2.99 for a half gallon. So it's a little bit more expensive, but it stays fresher longer. Like even if I don't drink it all, regular milk here goes bad in like a couple of weeks. It doesn't stay as fresh as it does down there. We call it lower 48. So if I say lower 48, it's the rest of the states other than Hawaii. Like almond milk, it's good for over a month. So that was another reason why I kind of switched to it. So even if it was a little more expensive, it made sense, because if we didn't drink it as fast, it didn't go bad.
Sorry, I was freezed. Sorry, I didn't heard. The thing is that I have heard that many people have restarted from doing Ayurvedic diet. You kind of have to know what type of body you have and follow like some protocols, and little by little you get adjust to it, and then you just have to be for 1 year doing that diet, and then you restart. So maybe it will.
By the way, even if your face freezes, it's very beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'll have to look into that, but we don't have a lot of those practitioners. Alaska has just we have the worst healthcare system in the whole United States, and it's outrageously expensive. Like I don't have health insurance, because to get just health insurance without even going to the doctor, it's $1,500 a month just for me.
Yikes.
So if I wanted to go to the doctor, it would be like one visit, and just having a basic blood test would be $475 here.
God bless America, huh?
How much?
So yeah, there's a lot of people with no health coverage in the state of Alaska.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I make $22 an hour, but it's like the cost of living here is high.
What do you do for a living?
I actually am a legal assistant to an attorney. But wow. I have different degrees too. I have a communication degree. So I used to be a PBS news producer, which I do radio, television, I do all of that, broadcasting, and then writing, journalism. And then I have another degree in veterinary technology. So I used to work for a while in the veterinary industry. So that's how I know a lot about humans and the body and how different things function, and how I know a lot about COVID-19, because it came out of the veterinary field. So yeah.
Awesome, really awesome. You're admiring.
Yeah,
That's why I was like volunteering to host, you know, because to me it was easy because I used to, when I was at college, I was the associate manager for the television station, so, or the radio station there. So.
Yeah, I don't know if it made news other places or not, but I know locally here there were, when something got in the news about COVID and animals, that people were dumping all their dogs and cats in the shelter, and I'm like, how stupid can you be?
Maybe. Well, and you know, animals can get it, but it's not that likely. But they don't realize that COVID itself, the COVID virus, not particularly this, but COVID itself, coronavirus comes from coronavirus. Equine HIV is a coronavirus. Human HIV is a coronavirus. Feline leukemia is a coronavirus. And the human cold is a coronavirus. And so you have all these diseases, they call it epizootic, when a disease transfers from the animals to humans. And the reason that this is happening is because of what we're doing to the planet. You know, we're basically destroying the habitat for all these people, I call them people, for all the sentient beings. And what people don't realize is the term for where a disease is in an environment is called its vector. So like the bubonic plague was actually not the rat, it was the flea that was on the rat. Right. So the place in the environment where that plague was kept was in the flea.
Right.
So when we destroy their environment and move them in and do what we're doing, we're basically, and it's going to get worse. Do you guys know that they have another thing going on in China right now?
Yeah, swine flu.
Swine and avine mixed.
Nice.
Right.
And
I
had swine flu the first time that it hit the United States. It was horrible.
Right. And, you know, once we stopped living with our animals, that's where smallpox came from, chicken pox. That's when people used to live with their animals. And so the diseases passed from the animal kingdom to humans. So, you know, as we do this, we have to realize there's consequences to what we do.
We have to remember we're animals as well.
Right.
We're just animals.
Yeah, and people don't realize that COVID-19 has mutated 33 times since it left China. The version that's in the United States is more virulent. It can spread faster. You know, and you know, what I believe too is people that are conscious that take care of their body. I take both the Schwaga and I take blueberry extract capsules, right? And, you know, if you keep your immune system up and stuff, I noticed that I used to have more allergies outside. And once I started taking a Schwaga and stuff, I didn't have that problem. But one of the interesting things that Ross said was that it was also in the channel in, what's her name? Diane Cannon, Dolores Cannon, was saying that people that were star seeds, when they came to the United States or into America, not America, but this planet, this incarnation, that they had a lot of allergies and problems like this. And I always found that interesting because, like, when I say I want to go home, I see a different place. When I look at the sky, it has 2 suns and it has 2 moons, and you can see a planet during the daylight. And it was funny because I was describing it to another friend of mine who's psychic, and he was like, no, I've seen that place. And people don't realize that even NASA, before they sent out the probes through our galaxy, they had Ingo Swann remote view every single planet as it left the galaxy. And then when they sent out the probe, they found out that what Ingo Swann said and described all the planets was accurate.
Yeah, he was unreal. I mean, apparently we all have that capacity. If you guys have done the CE5 meditation with Stephen Greer, who's, you know, is a student of the Vedas, there's some of the most ancient just depictions of what it is to have or be a piece of consciousness and what's possible.
And everybody, you're right, everybody has the ability to remote view, and Stanford found that out. And there's a great book. I can put it in the chat. It's called Mind Race. And it was written by Russell Targ, who led the studies at Stanford. But basically it teaches you to use your psychic abilities. And one of the things they found was that when you remote view, that every single psychic ability operates on the same frequency. So once they taught people to remote view, they gained precognition and other psychic abilities. But the interesting thing is they had to have everybody tell themselves that it was okay to be psychic. And they didn't use the word psychic. They said it was okay to have special abilities.
Some of the remote viewers were psychic way before, like they knew they were psychic. They were seeing fairies and having all kinds of experiences before they even, as children growing up. And a lot of people that were also part of the remote viewing, the Stargate group, were also had some kind of stressful childhood, some of them.
Right.
Well, kind of an interesting thing.
I've
met some of those, Joe McMoneagle and Skip Atwater.
And the ones at Stanford University, they wouldn't let anybody come and actually watch it. They would force them to do it themselves. And so what they found out was, like, they got Ingo Swann, but you know what happened to Ingo Swann? Does anybody know what happened?
Different intelligence agencies took their turns.
What is Ingo Swann? What is
Ingo Swann is the person that was the most psychic and accurate with remote viewing and other gifts, right? Ingo Swann, they were screwing with him accidentally did it to him. One of the colleges at the university, I don't remember which one it wasn't Stanford, but they decided to put him in a copper room. Copper actually enhances psychic abilities.
Superconductive.
Yes, they put him in a totally copper room and turned him on. They had to figure out how to turn him down. Yeah. There's another really interesting person. Do you remember the guy that used to bend spoons on TV?
Yeah.
In the 70s? They wouldn't touch that guy. But he actually said that he had entities that helped him do it, right? So Russell Targ and these two guys invented the laser, by the way. They were physicists anyway. Hal Putman, that was the other person. So they went to visit him, right? Just to check this out. And they said they went to his house and there was a stop sign on the corner. And they put like this equipment in the room next to them, right? And they were like shocked because the equipment did go off, and the guy, he was like stirring his spoon, and he takes the spoon out. When he picks the spoon out like this, it bends. Well, because there was no way to verify what he was doing, because all of their experiments were double-blind studies, they wouldn't touch him. But when they left his house, right, they went down the street where the stop sign was. After all the stuff they saw in the house he was in, the stop sign pole was actually in a swirl. And he said it looked like a little mouse slide. But they were like, we aren't going to touch this guy. And
I have a young... Go ahead.
No, I hear you say.
I have a young friend. He's like, when he was 8, I think he could look at a spoon and it would just bend, or he'd look at it in his bowl and it would bend, and he's like a magical kid. And he said his method was he would just ask it to bend, and then it would.
Yeah. And people don't realize, like, we have the ability to use our chi to move things, but our chi is the energy. But it's a latent ability that we just haven't realized how to use it. Like the Egyptians actually believed we have 200 senses.
Nice.
And apparently common isn't one of them.
Well, I teach clairvoyancy, so you can join to my course.
I would love to do that. I've always, like, since I was a little kid, I had precognitive abilities. Like, I could sense stuff before it happened. Or, you know my sister particularly, because we were a year apart, I could finish her sentences or know what was going on with her. But do you remember the big sequoia tree? No, it wasn't sequoia, but the big redwood tree with the hole that was drilled through it, where they cut it out?
Where you could drive through it?
Right.
Yeah,
it was so weird because, like, the Friday, I was like, I just had this big, like, download, like, from the planet, and I just sensed that I'm like, the tree's dying because of what they did to it. And on Sunday, it was in the news, the tree died.
Wow.
Well, kids, I think I'm going to go to bed now.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure again.
Love you.
Good night.
This is
Bye, Adele.
Bye.
Good night.
Sweet
Thank you. Good night. Good night, Marco. It's really all that way, huh? 3 in the morning.
Yeah. I'm actually, I think I'm going to say good night as well.
Yeah. Where are you, Marco?
Michigan.
Okay, so you're even further. I'm on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm at 3:04 in the morning.
Oh my God, it's yeah. I guess time flies with this group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Yeah,
Good
it's
night,
so hard
everyone.
to get off.
Yeah, I forget which night. I tried to leave at 5 and brush my teeth and lay down, and I just couldn't sleep. I got back up and went right back on after like 10 minutes and was there till after 7. But I got to take care of my health here. I can't have my feet explode from swelling. So
Right.
feet up. I might even listen for a while, but
We should just get you an inversion table so you can still just stay on but be upside down.
yeah, something like that. Well, I wouldn't mind. I need to get a new wireless keyboard and arrange my monitor so it hovers above my bed. Then I can have my feet up and still participate.
Yeah, that would be good for you. I know you're having problems with your knees and stuff, so.
Yeah, it's just I couldn't believe how swollen my feet were last night. It just scared me.
Yeah.
Well, sweet lucid dreams, Marco.
What is happening to you, Marco? What do you have exactly?
I have way too many things. But I have edema. My feet, my legs swell, but I'd never seen my feet swell as big as they were yesterday. And the thing is, during this 10 days, I've been doing a lot of sitting, which for long periods, which I'm not supposed to do. I'm supposed to, it's best if I don't go more than an hour and a half without putting my feet up for a few minutes, at least.
Right.
So.
Have you heard about pranic healing?
Yeah.
Would you allow me to do pranic healing to you?
Sure.
Okay, let's try.
What?
Tomorrow morning we can get in touch and I will do pranic healing to you, a remote session if you want.
What time are you right now?
Right now it's 2 a.m.
2 a.m. So we're an hour
I think we're at the same.
Yeah, I'm at 3 a.m.
And if it's okay with you, I have to ask you, I'll send you Reiki, if it's okay with you.
Yes, we need everything to help him. Yes.
I'll take anything at this point.
Okay.
Well, let's just all do a group healing now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Everyone.
I'm down.
Everyone healing him, okay?
Okay, let's do it. I'll do some Reiki.
Okay, right now?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. I'm gonna get my book.
Okay.
Okay.
I've got quantum touch and theta healing on board here.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for helping Marco.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's any way you can kind of arrange yourself differently where you can just sort of have a flow more that supports your feet.
Yeah, you know what? Let me see if I can move something around here.
Yes, have some rest because maybe you will get asleep after this. That's for sure. Sleep with the angels.
If anybody else is going to do Reiki, I'm just going to do the symbols right now if you want to do together. You want to do it? Who does Reiki?
So the diagnosis is basic enema, feet swallowness, right? Feet swallowness, enema. That's what you were diagnosed with?
Yeah, edema, swelling of the leg.
Edema,
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Hey ata om benganze ma benganze raja zamun gate soha. Te ata om benganze maha benganze raja zamun gate soha. Te ata om benganze maha benganze raja zamun gate soha.
Wow. That was interesting. Just a lot that it's hard to describe. At some point it was like different energies were competing for space. That was never really that was very different. I don't know when I've felt a moment. I can't remember the last time I had anything that felt close to how relaxed I got. And just
It's called love, universal
Yes.
love.
Absolutely.
Yay. Enjoy.
Yeah. Let us know how you feel tomorrow.
such obviously just overwhelming. The biggest thing was overwhelming love. I haven't been loved in so long.
Well, we do love you so, Marco.
Thank you so much.
Oh, so much love here.
You know, I have to tell you something, Marco. That last night, remember the Akashic Tarot deck I have?
Yeah.
So after we were done with the meeting, I pulled a card, right? And the card that came up was Destined Meeting.
I'm sorry, was what?
Destined Meeting. So that it was fascinating that we were all predestined to meet last night.
Oh.
You are beautiful, man.
Yeah, we love you, Marco.
Thank you so much.
Just remember, you can lay back anytime, and we know you're still there. You got a big enough heart for that. The heart's larger than the brain. I mean, it has a magnetic field that's like multiple times larger than the brain.
Yeah, just
been thinking about that a lot today. I have to do more. I have to think more with my heart, less with my brain.
And you can lay down and relax too. Well, we're all here. There were 4 of us on here, and just listen.
yeah, just bathe in all the love.
Yeah. I need to really go pee really badly right now. So we're moving that fluid.
There you go.
Probably good.
Detox going
good
on.
Go
on, detox going on.
Yeah.
Dehydrate, rehydrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there were my heart started. I could feel my heart beating very deeply, and then felt my heartbeat in every capillary. It was, and definitely, I have the diabetic neuropathy, and so I get a lot of strange feelings in limbs and legs and whatever, but this was different than anything.
That was me. I intentionally went in and cleaned out arteries, and because I knew that you had that, I was actually sending energy through your nerves and grounding out stuff through the earth. So you said I could go into your auric field too, so I went into your auric field and cleaned out some stuff too.
I almost expected to see you levitating up on the screen.
I specifically, though, went in to do that for you.
That was very intense.
Yeah, that it wouldn't have surprised me, but it was. Yeah, no, I can't even. I can't even describe sort of how could I say it? You know, it's.
No words are needed.
Yeah, definitely more love than I felt in a long time.
You're our family now, Marco.
I have pretty much I had no expectation, after my divorce to ever have any kind of loving relationship again, but this was unique. Wow. Well, before I wet the bed here, I better.
Good night. We love you, Marco.
I love you all. Thank you very much.
Marco, have you left yet?
No.
I have been silent, but I was doing some work for you too on my muted end, and I thought I would let you know sort of what I did. I do visualization and healing through that, and it directed me to go to your DNA. And there were 2 markers on your DNA that were red and had sort of globules there. There was one up higher and one down lower, and I did a cleansing of those 2, and then sent them into the sun and to burn up and redistribute in a more healthy way. But what it represented to me was that there might have been 2 systemic issues going on in your body.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that last part?
That there might have been 2 systemic issues going on in your body at the same time that was contributing to similar.
There was. I sensed that too.
There's,
okay.
Well, literally, I don't bother. I have to go to the doctor once a month because I'm on narcotics for pain. So in Michigan, the law is you have to sign a pain management contract, and you have to go every 30 days to get your meds. And you be randomly tested to make sure you're taking them and not selling them, or not taking anything besides. So.
No way, man. Here is your hospital. Like, you have to consider us like doing this therapy if you want. Like, I can do daily this therapy for you. It's no problem.
Yeah, we can do this for you every night. Trust me, you'll feel better. Plus, I did a layered.
Please
count. Go ahead. Tell you can say.
The thing is, the point I was trying to get at. So I go so often. Only every once in a while do I have to do a printout of the visit. And the last one I had listed my 28 active health problems, which is just mind-boggling. And I'm like, that can't be right. And I'm like, look, oh yeah, that's everything, Yeah. But I have sleep apnea. And like I said, I've been tested for lupus 3 or 4 times because I have enough symptoms that I could be. And there's in my regular blood work, there's a marker that says, you might have lupus. And then I talked to another doctor that says, you could take all that same blood work and give it to 8 different doctors. And he said, and you're going to get 8 opinions, and probably at least somewhere near half of them will say you do have lupus, where the other half are saying, they're not confident enough to make the thing.
What you have going on is an inflammation cascade.
Yes.
And so the inflammatory markers are what's making them think you have lupus. But I took everybody's healing modalities, and while we were doing that, I kind of did like a meditative quantum jump with, the layered transurfing thing to lock it in for you. So we're going to be expecting to hear back, but we'll keep on working with you and I intentionally I could sense that you had circulation problems and stuff going on in your legs. So I went ahead and did some energy work on that for you.
Wow. No, like I said, let me run to the bathroom.
Yeah. Better than any painkillers.
Go, Rush! Come on.
Yes. I'm gonna go into mute again, and just know that you've been reset, and we all love you.
Thank you.
He's a special person.
Thank you all. That was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It really was.
I threw some Qigong in there too, where you can go in and actually remove stuff, like energy blockages. Like I did Reiki, I did several different things on it. But yeah. And I think we are all like destined to meet each other, because it's like as a group we function together. You know what I'm saying? And I think all of us have felt like he felt that, I know, like with me, my son had just left, and I can understand what he was talking about, so yeah, and my cat. So I had 7 brothers and sisters, but I now have like 3 brothers left alive and 2 sisters. But they're so emotionally dysfunctional that, they do crap to you and then blame you for it. My brother stole my truck once, ran into a fence, and then he actually slammed my ex into a wall. So it was like we put a restraining order on, but he blames you for what he did, and so I only actually have a relationship with 1 sister. But through that, I found consciousness and all this other stuff. My parents died. My dad died when I was like, the year I turned 9, I was technically 8 when my dad died, and my mom died when my son was 2, not quite 2. So for me, it's been a long time of just being alone.
Hop in. We all need healing. Come on.
Yeah. So I was just saying I could understand and feel how he felt, and that's why,
I will
I love you guys.
out also.
Yes, I know.
I'm here.
But I was just saying.
Thank you,
So
sister.
I was saying I understood how he felt. But yeah.
Well, Deidre, there are no accidents, and I do believe that this group was brought together for a very specific purpose. I feel that connection very deeply.
Yeah. So I have a group of
Yes,
friends.
I was imagining like creating in my mind a group where I can go to give everything that I had with myself. So yes, this is meant to be. I'm sure about it.
What a blessing. What a true and incredible blessing. My heart is wide open.
Yeah. And people just don't realize the ability that we have to connect to each other, and it's a gift to be able to actually, to me, to send healing to someone else. I think it's a blessing to be able to do that for someone else.
Well, and in sharing that, we heal ourselves.
Right.
Participate in the field, you know, creating that healing container.
Mm-hmm. And I got the black cat. The Egyptians believed that black cats ground out negative energy. Wound up with the 20-pound Maine Coon cat from the pound when my son left. But he's a big sweetheart.
Love Maine Coons. Oh yeah.
We have all the bases covered.
I have an idea. We can like kind of start sending love to this group and make it ground here. And so everybody that comes here feels the healing.
Yes.
Because if we do this jointly, this would be like, you have no idea. This is atomic energy going on. It's not a joke. So if we build shields and we transfer all the energy here and believe that people is going to heal over here, like a hospital, like I said to Marco, right? So we can do that. It's like we can daily send our energy. Everybody that comes in, take some minutes to send this energy for whoever needs it. Like try to imagine who is needing it. Maybe sometimes we can read. I read some things about Marco, but I'm going to talk with him personally because there are his things. I think this is private and intimate. But we can everybody feel the energy of the others. That's not strange. What is strange is to me like too many hearts in the same purpose. That's strange. that is special. That is precious. So everybody, thank you here, and we can do that.
And that's why I didn't say anything about what I did until he brought it up, that I had actually gone in and worked with his arteries and his nerves and stuff. Because until he brought it up, I was not free to say anything.
Yes, of course.
That's why I wanted to bring up the DNA. when your cat was with you, my dog, I had the other side of that because as I was doing the work, my dog hopped up on the bed and started licking my legs, and so he was healing me while I was healing, and I didn't see it as just one healing for one person. I was after I did the DNA work, I was seeing it as a collective healing. So I love the idea of bringing it to the group and allowing that healing work and energy to expand into everyone who is here and beyond.
And one of the things about transurfing, you can envision healing for someone else. You can actually help them, or in quantum jumping. So if I envisioning it for him, then you can actually help him achieve that. And so when I took everybody's energies, I envisioned him, having his issues resolving and basically jumping him into that future with sending all of these energies to him and in love and so in seeing his response and how he would feel if to receive healing and not have all these conditions and stuff. So you can do that for someone else to help them actually manifest their stuff with reality transurfing. So
that's beautiful. You need to teach me that transfer. I was trying to explain some friends what you were explaining yesterday, but no way, I couldn't. It has to be on your own words. I'm going to take you to my chat to chat with my friends, and then you explain them, because I had no clue what you were telling, right? You took me to another dimension, I swear.
And I came across it accidentally because I've actually had knee and back surgery. And so I read the book, The Field. And so I started actually going into my auric field first, but then I started going into the 0 point field, which is where you actually do reality transferring. So it's the field everything is manifested out of. So they, like Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it the void, you know. He talks about going into space and can you feel the space around you? And so it's a place where time doesn't exist.
I need to write that down.
So I basically took him to the void. And you know, the 0 point field, another name for it is the Akashic field. So there, you know, it has many names. That the Chinese called it the father of all things. You know, when it manifests in the world, that was what they called the mother of all things. So it has many different names to it. So.
We just say welcome home.
Yeah.
I think that what is going here is like a big bang or something. I felt like like you said, I don't need to feed myself. I don't need to sleep. I feel like part of the matter and non-matter at the same time. This is crazy. It's like all my atoms have exploded or something happened then.
Well, you know, that's even Hassan, the physicist, you know, he talks about that we should eventually have the ability to actually feed ourselves from the field. And I think that's what we're doing. We're entering into the field because we're in this place of love. And so we're actually taking what we need from the field and not necessarily having to eat. Does that make sense? To provide what we need for our body. How, Marco, how are you feeling?
Like I don't need to sleep, but I...
Welcome to the conversation.
Now I feel like, why not stay up the rest of the night? But I probably should not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are people that, gosh, I need to work on my memory again. But there's a boy that was born with the monks. I don't know if he was born and given to the monks or whatever. You know, the boy that was born with the tail. And he supposedly just does not eat. He lives on sunshine and water. And there's a couple people that claim that they do that. Yeah, so that would be nice. We're not having to worry about calories and weight. And you know, like you said too, it's like I didn't realize that my insulin makes me put on weight while I'm fighting weight, and then I get, you know, cortisone injections, which make my sugars go up, which makes me take more insulin, which, you know, it's just everything kind of crazy. But
what I want you to do, Marco, is to start taking cinnamon.
Yeah, I started doing that. I was taking like making half a cup of very loose oatmeal, and then I was taking flaxseed meal and stirring it into that to thicken it up a little bit with honey and like 2 tablespoons of cinnamon in there. That's a lot of cinnamon, but it still tasted okay, and it helped with my sugars.
Yeah, it keeps your blood sugar level so it doesn't spike.
Yeah,
so
I was doing it, but I started, you know, having to where, you know, I should be eating at least 4 meals a day, and then I end up, I don't know how I manage it. I get up and I say, okay, I'm going to make my oatmeal, and then next thing I know, it's, you know, it's almost noon. Well, I'll I could have oatmeal for lunch, but maybe I better have something more substantial. And then something else happens, and then it's 9, 10 o'clock at night. I still haven't eaten, and then I eat from 9 or 10 o'clock until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, nibbling and just.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, one of the things is that it's just my I'm just not getting along with my siblings at all. It's the worst it's ever been. I mean, when things were bad, one thing you could count on is the love from your brother and sister. And
we were discussing that when you were gone. I was telling him the same thing. I totally understand where you're at, Marco.
When my little sister was born, we were in the middle of building a new house for ourselves, and it was a total family project. My mom drew the house, the basic design. My brother did the blueprints, and my dad worked full time. But we every day after work, we'd put in X amount of time putting sections together of the house in the backyard, and then we had to take them load them on the hay wagon and take them a 1/10 of a mile to the new foundation. But I was 13 and I broke my leg playing soccer, so suddenly I have nothing. I can't help really. There's no setting rafters with a broken leg. But my sister was born, so I was taking care of her, and so we made a really close bond. I was giving my mom whatever extra time she could do to help with the house and keeping the garden going and everything, and I kind of felt as much like she was my kid as my sister, and that she won't even look at if I walk towards her now, she turns around and walks away. She doesn't even want to look at me, and I don't understand.
Yeah,
there's nothing to deserve it.
That's what I was sharing with them. My brothers and sisters would do stuff to you and then blame you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I have one sister I talk with, and most of my brothers and sisters have addiction problems now, but none of them learn to deal with their emotions. And so I haven't talked to a lot of them in years just because of all the garbage, and it's not my garbage, it's their garbage. It's like, at some point you got to stand up for yourself and say, I respect myself too much to take any more of this, So
yeah, that's where I'm at. And every time I say I'm not going to do this again for them, I do. I mean, I recognize that I'm not helping them. I'm enabling them. But I feel so guilty when I don't do the things that they keep expecting, don't pay the bills that they're not paying that they should. And, I feel guilty even though I have no reason to.
It's because you love and care about them. And, I felt my one brother, $10,000 in 1 year, seriously. And he was 6 years older than me, and all I realized I was doing was enabling him to continue doing what he was doing, and he hasn't spoken to me since I refused to take care of him anymore.
Yeah, I get that.
What's the best way to neutralize everything you're talking about? You send blessings because we are all connected. So even if you don't want to, you have to send blessings to the other person. Imagine that you are attached with this cord, with this energetic cord. And because he's going to send the contrary that you are sending, everything neutralizes with the blessings. So every single day, send them blessings. Send blessings to your enemies, send blessings to the people that is giving you harsh in life, in work, in whatever you are going through. And it's very important that you don't get entangled with these low nature emotions, right?
And you know, my one brother,
and even
he's
if
in
it's hard, you can do it. I trust
Yeah.
him.
My brother, he's in Arizona, and I asked my sister, the one I talked to, my one brother, his wife died, and he turns around and starts yelling at me, you know, and I had nothing to do with it. And he was like, well, I just don't want to talk to you, you know. And then he went through the stroke, and he doesn't remember, but he still doesn't want to talk to me. But I had nothing to do with any of that, you know. But my one brother, who's in Arizona, he has heart problems. And I asked my sister, I said, he's living in her house and she's up here with her boyfriend. And I'm like, does he have a mask? And she's like, no. So I ordered him some masks from Amazon and sent him masks, you know. And she goes, by the way, she goes, Sean did appreciate the masks. Even though he's not talking to me, he appreciated it. So that was, you know, well, I can send you love anyway. I'll send you masks, you know. So because if he goes, he's got a really bad heart problem. So if he goes to the doctor or any place, that just helps him not, you know, have other issues. So.
Yeah, right now in Michigan, we're under mandatory masks. Any public place, indoors, you have to have a mask. And outdoors, if you come within 6 feet of anybody, you have to have a mask. But we have, you know, I mentioned it before. I can't remember who all was there at the time, but we literally have these militia people in Michigan that stormed the Capitol with armed semi-automatic weapons to fight for their right not to wear masks. While wearing like gas masks, you know. I'm like, how stupid can you be? It's like I don't know what they were trying to prove by going there in these full, you know, like hazmat type.
That's Sputting to the sky. That's what I call Sputting to the sky.
It's like the Christians saying that God will protect us, but the Bible also says, don't tempt thy Lord God. We had one person post down here that she wasn't going to go to Walmart anymore because they required masks. And we're like, well, then she's not going to Fred Meyer's anymore, which is Kroger food. And she's not going to Home Depot anymore because those are the only food stores in town now requiring masks. But so everybody just laughs about them when they share their posts. You know, we're like, yeah. We call it Darwinism. The survival.
Yeah. Yeah.
My boss, go ahead.
It's not necessarily, you know, when they say Darwinism is fittest survive.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily physically fittest that survive.
Right.
Mentally fit.
Right. I love the Darwin Awards every year. They list the people that died from stupidity. My boss gave me a sign today with a little black bear with a mask on it, and it says, don't show up with a bear face. And a bear's wearing a mask.
No.
That, and he gave me the little paperweight with the jellyfish in it. I go to work, he tells me to go to the office and clean and do some accounting, and he had 2 presents in the office for me.
Oh.
Does anybody else have anything they want to be prayed for about or healing sent for?
I feel so, you know, feel like the proverbial weight has been lifted. It's like my shoulders feel light.
I'm just glowing in the residual energetic flow.
Yeah, it's not like it's over.
Well, Marco, your physical appearance looks different.
Mm-hmm. Someone's asking how the internet could evolve to be the Akashic records. I don't understand that question. Last night we read a tarot card from the Akashic tarot deck. Not the internet. We were talking about the 0 point field or the void. People call it the void. There's a bunch of different names, but not the internet. So I was just reading questions on here while we were on the chat.
So. Oh yeah. How could the internet evolve to be more like an interactive Akashic record? Yeah.
No, only if it became with an AI, possibly. But I don't want to go there.
Well, you know, when I was a lot of things, changed for me around, you know, when I was 13, I made a lot of, had several things happen that changed, you know, the way I think and what I do. When I was younger, I had a terrible, terrible temper. I remember the one time my brother did something, and something like he flicked my ear or something, and then he ran inside, closed the door, and locked it. Well, we had the storm door there was like, you know, little panes of glass this big, like 4 across and 10 high or something like that. And I was, you know, knocking on the door to get at him, pounding on the door, and I smashed, I don't know how many of those little panes of glass. And my hands were cut and full of glass and blood everywhere. And my mom came out. She cleaned and pulled glass out of my hands, you know, bandaged up my hands, and then she beat my ass. And she said, you know, if you don't get this temper under control, it's going to run your life. And that was the first of many times I remember being told that, between, like, I was like 5 then and 13. And when I was 12, God, I haven't told this story in a long time. I'll throw caution to the wind. I had hurt my shoulder, I forget how, but bad enough that I had to go to the doctor and get x-rays. And it had just been like wrenched really badly. It wasn't broken or nothing torn, but hurt like crazy. So next day at recess in 6th grade, and you know, one of my friends, he just hit me, punched me in the shoulder, you know, how kids do. And I'm like, Troy, hey, I had to go to the doctor, man. That really hurts. Don't do that. And he's like, hits me again, even harder. And I'm like, Troy, I just told you, seriously, I have to go to the doctor. I'm really injured. And he hit me again, and everything went black, you know, and, you know, slowly, and then black, you know. Next thing, I hear voices, you know, far off in the distance, and then in this darkness, and I hear these voices, and then I feel like I'm being, you know, jerked around, and it's like I had ended up, I was sitting on his chest, just pounding him in the face, and it took like 6 other kids to pull me off, and luckily they're, you know, like whoever was supervising recess didn't see it, and they, you know, dragged us behind this little storage shed they had there and calmed everything down. And it's like, if people didn't pull me off, I probably would have killed him, and that scared the crap out of me. So I learned to control my temper, because my mom was absolutely right. It's either I control it or it's going to control my life. And when I met my wife, and when we were living together, when we were living together before we got married, you know, she always used to say, you know, it's like you never get mad, you know, it's like everybody gets mad. I'm like, no, you know, I'm never gonna let my temper, you know, get the better of me again. And we had a boarder there, and he had broken like every rule, you know. He had brought strangers home from the bar that he had only just met, and they were playing music loud all night. And I had to go to work, and I'm like, his alarm kept going off for like 45 minutes. And I had had enough. I'm like, grabbed a baseball bat and I went down the stairs, and every stair I thumped the bat, and I banged on his door, and I knocked it open, and I'm like, and I see these strange people there, and I'm like, and I know they were there the night before because he introduced them to me when he brought them home from the bar. And I'm like, but before I went down the stairs, I said, I got to get going to work, and it's like, I'll shut Dwayne's alarm off and tell him to keep quiet. And she said, but she said, I was just down there. She said, those guys are still here. And I'm like, what? So I went down there, and I'm just like, opened the door, and I just banged on the bottom of his bed with the baseball bat. I'm like, everybody out. You have 5 minutes. And she was thrilled. She had never seen me ever mad. And I didn't, I was still in control. It wasn't an out of control thing, but yeah, she was just thrilled. She says, wow, she literally thought there was something wrong with me because I wouldn't get unreasonably mad. Like, she still had a horrible temper. So, but yeah. So I know how to make, I know a lot of things I haven't been practicing lately. Problem. I got weird stuff on my screen. I don't know what I did. It's like, I can't make this thing go away that's blocking my screen. That makes...
One of the things that I appreciate so much about you, Marco, is your authenticity.
Oh yeah, that's one of those things. It's like I have a healthy ego or self-esteem, whatever you want to call it. It's like, if you don't like what I do, that's your problem, not mine. The only place where, like I said, the thing is that's just breaking my heart now is that, the people that I've always thought I would always be able to count on, I can't right now. And that's, other than that, of course, now I'm growing to love you guys all so much that, I do care what you think. But in general, it's like, don't tell me I should think your way or that way, or don't, I hate people. I don't really hate. I feel so bad for people that think their way is the only way, and that everybody should do things their way, like these crazy.
My mother had a wonderful saying, and it was, take it or shake it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Linda, I'm going to say something out of place, but I need to say it. Like, you can go to another chat room and do a hotline because your voice is so, like, fucking sexy and arousing, and I don't know how to describe it. But really, really, you have to do this. Like, you will rise the testosterone, like, to everyone.
Now, I always felt that I didn't have, I've wanted to go into radio before or do a vlog or but I never felt I have a speaking voice. Wow.
You too, but I was telling to Linda because she has this hotline voice, like.
Okay, because I was going to say that doesn't sound like me, and it's.
Oh my gosh.
No, yeah. Sorry. You too, but I was talking about Linda.
Okay, because I was like, really?
It was a compliment. I swear it was a compliment.
That's great.
I love you, Jimena.
There is
really, you have to do this, man. Darling, you have to do this because everybody here would be so happy to hear you. Like, you have no idea.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's like when the people used to call up for the phone sex and it would be a little old lady with Not that you're that. I was just saying I always thought that was hilarious. And then you would see the picture of the person. And
Well,
these guys
I have news for you. I am a little old lady.
The thing that the most is that this is recording.
Beep.
Can we please cut that out? Can bleep that part out?
I guess there's going to be laughs for a few other people. I didn't think about that.
Let's be clowns. Let's be clowns.
I love it. That's great.
We found our joy.
You two have a sexy voice, so don't worry about it.
Oh.
Sorry, Linda, I had to take that out. I'm sorry. I hope you take it as a compliment.
Don't apologize.
On that happy note, I'm going to go to bed. I got super sleepy, but thank you guys so much. It's been so much fun hanging out here. And I hope you feel a lot better, Marco.
Thank you, Eliana.
You guys take care, okay? See you tomorrow. And we're doing Hue meditation tomorrow again at 11 in the morning. So check out the Facebook thing if you want to join.
Okay.
Okay. Mwah. Bye.
Thank you, Miss Angel. Good night.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, here I'm already almost an hour longer than I said.
You have to lay down and rest.
Yes.
Because it's part of the healing, you know? You're going to have the best dreams ever, I swear.
Yeah.
Get rid of my one screen here.
Jamin is going to wake up from his lethargy and he's going to say, what the hell have I done? This Mexicana, get her out of here, please.
Don't leave this group in charge.
Please don't let her be here alone.
Were you on with us the other day when it was all the girls, weren't you? Or were you there, or had you left already?
When I was with all the girls? I was.
Yeah, when we were doing the necklace. And we were like laughing, they're not going to let us do this. We were doing acupressure.
What were you doing? Hanky panky?
They were doing. She was showing us different not just the acupressure points, but like chi points, and she had us going down like this, between her boobs, and we're like, we all started laughing because the girls were on it.
Awesome.
I'll have what she's having.
We're like, they're not going to let us do this anymore. But we were all singing. Everybody was there. Our bunch of artists that were on that day, so they were all singing and playing the different music. And I have a Cherokee drum, and so we were drumming. And everybody we all sang a song together. It was fun. So that was another one of those where they were like, okay, wait till you watch this video. And gone from all kinds of different things.
Oh,
how did I miss that?
You see, her voice is the most amazing thing I have ever heard.
The late night TV or late night radio person, yes.
Please help to a room here, hotline room. No, what happened with you when you were a teenager or like that? That you had like so many boyfriends around. We want to know. Share, please.
Actually, I did not.
Well, sounds like it was their loss for sure.
Yeah.
I ran away to San Francisco and became a hippie.
Well, that's peace and love. Come on.
It was indeed then. I made up for lost time.
See, you trained yourself. That's a gift.
Right.
Oh my.
I felt like I had a drug or something.
You know, it's only an hour and 45 minutes till morning. 24 hours is up anyway.
We're just all high on the love bug.
Yeah, it's only 12:19 here.
E.T.'s fault.
Oh, that's right. So it's, yeah, no, I keep forgetting the time. Yeah, okay, so yeah, no. Yeah, that would be another.
Oh, 3:33. We have to channelize. No, because the ETs are going to arouse and they are going to come to this room. Like every time Linda is in here, whoa, this is going to be hotline.
The cosmic love line.
Cosmic love line.
Stop it.
Oh.
You haven't said anything, James. I wonder about the quiet.
Here.
I think James has been sleeping for quite a while.
I'm like looking at the people with the names on here that haven't said a word. I'm like, okay, have we totally shocked them?
I think James and both the Christophers and who has this telephone number fell asleep with that healing that we did. Something like that.
Oh.
And Jeff is trying to figure out when to come up.
I think they're afraid.
No, this kind of reminds me. Somebody was talking. Oh, earlier today somebody was talking about education, and something along the lines of the school. I can't remember exactly what it was about how children were being stifled by school and whatnot. When I was in third grade, second or third grade, my mother got called in for a conference at the school. So she's like, not, it wasn't, a regular parent-teacher conference where everybody goes. And she's like, "What did you do?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She says, "Why is your teacher asking for a conference with me?" I'm like, "No, not a clue." So she went into this conference and she was kind of a little bit worried. And she's talking to the teacher. She says, "Well," she said, what's the problem?" She said, "Well," for example, she said, "Marco, he tends to talk a lot. And, little boy is over there, talking. And, he does get his work done, but, he's distracting to the other boys because, he's a good student. He gets his work done first, and then he wants to talk." And she said, "So I did what we, normally do and this, generally it cures it. I moved his seat so he was surrounded by girls." And she said he talked even more. And it was worse. And she said, "And okay, so this is why I'm called into a conference?" "Well, it's not just that. Well, you said he gets his work done and he does well. He talked too much with the boys, talks even well." She said, I'm confused. Is there a real problem? What is a real?" "Well," she said, "I don't know exactly how to say, it's like, I'm not even sure how to explain it to you, but it's like I can't fit him in any of the pigeonholes." And my mom said, "Okay," she said, "so there's no problem. He's doing it." She said, "Please don't ever bother to waste my time for anything so foolish." I can't pigeonhole him. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
That's funny. Like women have 3,000 words every day and men have 100? Yeah. 30,000.
Well, I guess
we have 300,000 and you have 30,000. So imagine that.
I'm guessing I must be, you know, more in touch with my feminine side because I've got. Well, it's like right now our board of directors. It's like it was 6 women and me. Now there's I guess we do have 3 males on now, but for a while it was I was always at every meeting. If it was just a board meeting or a committee meeting, it's like it was just me and all women, which I guess it seems to be that ecological groups and environmental groups tend to be more women than men. And some study was done that pointed that out, and I was like, well, it makes sense. You know, women are always cleaning up after men.
Jimena, you're muted.
Maybe you were an Arab and this is your harem, so enjoy.
Oh.
Apparently he likes this group. The cat.
I swear he loves this group. He wants to stay for life. Like we have Marco here like a statue. And he can stay here and surveil all the chat for us when we come in.
Seriously though, Marco, you need to put your feet up.
Yeah, that's true.
You'll know when Rylet comes back because you'll see the black cat tail go through the screen.
So it was raining cats and dogs literally with energy, or what happened? I didn't saw your cat. What happened?
We just went through here. His tail, he just walked through. You could see his tail going straight up the screen.
You have an Egyptian cat, you were saying?
I have a Maine Coon, a black Maine Coon.
Which? Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, sorcerer.
He's like, okay, I'll show you that.
Welcome to the aquelarre. How do you say aquelarre in English?
Get my space mask on.
Are you okay? Is that oxygen? Or you're going to start a Star Wars
it's
thing going on here?
CPAP.
Dead-eye training.
I have severe sleep apnea and I stop breathing when I sleep.
Oh, okay. So you have oxygen.
It's just compressed air. Just a positive. It's just positive pressure, so it keeps my airway open. When I had my first sleep study done, they said that I was the worst case, second to worst case they ever had. My, blood oxygen should be 95 or higher for a healthy person. Mine dropped into the 30s.
What?
Yeah.
So you're an angel. You're still alive here. Come on.
They said the other. They said the
Where
other
are your
guy.
wings?
They said the other guy that was bad. That not only did he stop breathing, his heart would stop and restart.
Yeah, like COVID. If they drop from 70 something, they are already saluting God. So where are you, man? Are you in this plane or you're playing tricks with us?
That was pretty rough because I was falling asleep driving during the day, and just so many times I should have easily died while driving over that period before I got tested. That it's a miracle.
Well, you gotta come here often, okay? Or stay for life. Stay doing the guard.
He looks like a fighter jet pilot with the.
Yeah, he looks like something of Star Wars going on here. Like the spaceship is turning into a real spaceship, right?
This is really so much better than what I used to have. This just is there's two little parts that go, you know,
two nostrils, yeah.
What I had before would cover, you know, my face like this.
Oh no.
That was horrible. This is so comfortable, so much more comfortable. But yeah, I used to snore so bad that people in the house next door could hear me snore.
Oh my gosh.
So
my ex used to snore so loud. I was at my sister's house and we were outside and he was upstairs and he was sleeping and he was snoring so loud we could hear him outside, and my sister's husband is like, "Is that a bear?" We're like, "No, it's Phil snoring."
Yeah.
This is not Canada. This is Alaska.
That's what it was. It's when we lived the other side of town. You know, the neighbors would be out. They worked like night shift or something, so they would be coming home at, you know, middle of the night, and they'd like to sit on their porch and relax. And you're like, "What is that noise?"
He's getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So tell us about your work.
Emina, you're muted.
Yeah.
I was doing my monologue. I was starting to hear myself. What is going on here with this thing of they are going to build a schedule, and so everybody is here like 2 hours to help out? Did they say something?
Oh, we asked you what you tell us about your work.
My work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but did you hear what I told?
Yeah, that people will be here 2 hours. I haven't seen that one yet.
No, but they said that they were going to make some schedules.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to have the hosting covered around the clock.
From 24/7 or what?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, that would be awesome, but let's join together like everybody.
Yeah. Okay. We'll still be here at this time.
We need to cooperate, people.
And we're like the Breakfast Club.
I think we're more like other thing. I don't want to say that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
My work. Okay, my work. I was an interpreter and translator in English and Italian, and I worked for many companies, and I was with reflectors, like somehow like Auschwitz over me all the time. And I was very, very good at it. I have lost a lot of practice in English because right now my work is to heal people 24/7. But I did had a great time. I learned so many things and so many how do you say, like, not only postures but philosophies and sciences and so on, because I worked for the army, for the Mexican army. There was a time when I was a Bellic chick. Well, no, not really, but I did this work, and I was like kind of an intermediary between the Mexican army and a company that brought weapons to Mexico. And then I said, this is not this is not what I want to do. This is so karmatic. This is so out of me. This is not me. So I decided to drop everything And I started studying like so many courses about spirituality and healing and shaman techniques and whatever you want. And I studied thanatology. Thanatology is the science that helps people die in a honorable way, let's say, and without pain, or dealing with their pain before dying. So this makes them greet life better, I think. So I've been a thanatologist for 9 years, and it's been a long ride. It's been a very, very long ride, because when I was at the army and I was this very important interpret of Mexico and so on, I earned a lot of money, and I had another like kind of status, as whatever you mean. And then I had tough times, but they were also great times, because I learned so many precious things that no money can buy. And I started this to be part of a project of people with Huntington disease. Have you heard about this disease?
Yes.
It's the most difficult disease ever.
Yeah.
And it's like a waiting for your sentencia. How do you sentence? Sentence? Like if you're in a Green Mile and waiting to your sentence. That's why I call Huntington. And I worked with people for 4 years in a project of a friend of mine that discovered she had Huntington. But the disease hadn't triggered yet. So she had time to think about how she was going to experience his life, from pain or from joy. So she decided that she was going to run marathons all around the world. And sorry, my English right now is like, I feel a little bit drunk. I don't know what happened. But my English is not that fluent. I have to practice. So
we understand you perfectly.
So she decided that she was going to have fun and help other countries. While running marathons, she was going to help other countries to get scientific tools in order to find a cure of Huntington. So I so admired her, because she is like an example of life, very particular and beautiful example of life. And I worked with her for 5 years, almost 5 years. Then some people get into the project, and I didn't want to fit with that energy because they were doing wrong things. So I decided to step out of the hub and of that club. And life sent me to study thanatology. And is that I had been doing this empirically like for 5 years. So I already had that know-how. And I studied and I committed to be like one of the best versions of myself that I could be. So I started like adding all my techniques and everything I knew to help out build like this kind of rituals, and trying people to do techniques of Brian Weiss of presential hypnosis. Have you this present? And visualizations and changing your future, just like you said, Adria, but also you mentioned I forgot the name. This scientific that had this problem, and he is now in Gaia and does this series that is called Rewire.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, exactly. And I started building my own rituals, and so many beautiful things happened throughout the building of my rituals. Like, I didn't realize that I already had information that even if I hadn't taken the course on advance, I already knew. So it was like a confirmation and a reaffirmation of what I needed to do as a mission in life. So I started like talking to shamans, and you know that Mexico is such a magical place to live in if you are a pranic healer and a holistic healer. So I had the chance like to do so many ceremonies with shamans and to be advised and to be guided, and they told me that I was a psychic, and that I had to use this ability to help others and not fearing, and even if I was going to be attacked sometimes, and even if I was not going to be feeling all my brightness but also my darkness, I would be safe. And so I decided, I made this vow to embrace my gift, and many beautiful things have happened to me. I have no words to describe. When you are having contact with a transcendent being, it's like, what is happening? How could this happen? It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I have this story. I'm going to tell it to you. The first time that I channelized a transcendent being, it was a little girl, and his mother was beside me. She died when she was 6 years old, and she appeared with this beautiful yellow dress and with a ponytail like in the right side, and something, she was showing me a picture, and something was blinking in her teeth. And she was showing me that she was in a tricycle. And I was starting to describe this to her mom. And her mom she broke on tears. And she told me, I lost my little girl. That's her. I have her picture. And whenever you tell me about thinking about my little girl, I always think in that picture. That's the picture I refer to. I was like, really? Okay. And I was like, wow, what is happening? And she told me, what else is happening? And the little girl started describing how she died. So she took me to this place where I saw water, and I saw a crash, and I saw metal spreading everywhere. And I started describing the scene, and the mother said, stop. My daughter died in the crash of 2 boats. So I was like, okay. And she started giving me details about everything. A dog that escaped, and his name was, I heard Toki or something like that, and the name was Lucky. And so I started receiving names, experiences, the way the things that she liked, everything. And she said to me, you're going to tell my mother that I know the places in the house, and I know that his bathroom smells vanilla all the time. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the psychic hospital, but okay, I'm going to do that. And I tell her, okay, I will do. I said to her, your bathroom smells like vanilla. And she said, it's the only essence I have. I have my soap is vanilla, my shampoo is vanilla, my candle is vanilla. Like, imagine how many species or fruits or like essences are like so many in this world. And that's when I described that I was a clarisentient also, not only a clairvoyant. So clairvoyant. So that thing continued, and she was telling me that his father died from a brain derrame cerebral. I don't know how to say this.
Aneurysm?
Yes, like an aneurysm, yes. And that was just perfect. He died from an aneurysm. And then she told me that his brothers were like this and that. And she started describing like just everything about the life. And she then stopped and said, Mom, you need to hear me. And I was like, okay, she's saying, Mom, you need to hear me. And she's very serious. Right now, she's acting very, very serious. And she was telling, Ma'am, someone, you know, every single day of her life is putting a rose to me and praying for me. And she suddenly came out of the trance. I don't know how to explain this. And she said, my sister. And I told her, what happened with your sister? And she told me, my sister is an alcoholic and I haven't seen her like for 10 years or so many years. I haven't seen her. I lost the count, she said. And I was like, okay, and why is she an alcoholic? Because I delivered her with all my confidence, my little girl, and she delivered her dead to me. So she had this traumatic experience that she turned into an alcoholic. And I said to her, did you forgive her? And this was like so shocking to her. It was like, imagine this question, like, can you forgive someone that you make with all your confidence, these people take care of your children and your children is delivered in a box? Like, this is so tetric and so difficult to deal with, right? So she said, no, I have never forgive her. So I told her, you gotta start to forgive her. That's the thing, you gotta start to forgive her. So long story short, she got in touch with her sister, and her sister told her that every single day she put a rose in the altar for the little girl to pray for her glory in the sky or in heaven. And this was like, I had so many precious experiences, really. I am going to tell like so many as I can, because like knowing about the other side and having this tranquility, I also have known people that has committed suicide. And they come and tell me how they suicide, why, what was the situation, the names of some members of their family, something that is very, very clear and concise in order for them to know that I am talking to him or to her. And then they started telling their relatives that they are not in a place of darkness, because sometimes they think that they are in the limbo or in the bardo of the Buddhist
Catholics
philosophy.
for, purgatory or,
Exactly,
limbo, like I understand, yeah.
The Christian religion. And that's not true. That's not true. Yeah. They came here as souls. They had a tough moment, but they had decided everything that happened to them. It was meant to be. So it is beautiful, because sometimes they get to know information that they had no clue that it existed that way. And really,
I had a brother that committed suicide. Yeah. Oh, and he was like my favorite brother, but I can still sense him,
Yeah, we can channelize him. I'll do you this gift. And the thing is that somehow this information is coming from me also, so be aware, okay? And the thing is that they needed to do this because the family had to act in another way. So it was meant to happen because they choose this as a soul to fix some like broken parts in the family. And most of the time it's like kind of the same dynamic, like something didn't work, the family, right? And it was a very difficult environment to be in. And I'm sorry for your loss.
That's okay. No, you're helping me. Go ahead.
And this is like, well, it's hard to tell because it was one of your loved ones, right? But he's in a place of glory, of